In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Please be seated. As you can see by, looking around the room, opening your ears at all of our exuberant costumes and decorations, we here at Christ Church have gone all in for this celebration of All Hallows Eve. What we have come to call All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, had its birth as a Celtic festival marking the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter. The Celts associated winter with death, and it was on the night of October 31st that they believed the veil between the living and the dead to be particularly thin. This was a night to honor and invite home a family's ancestors. But of course, any harmful spirits who had also taken advantage of this liminal time and space needed to be warded off. And so, people wore costumes and masks to disguise themselves from any of these frightening spirits. The Christian Church has not been shy about incorporating pagan traditions into our church practice, kind of subsuming these events into Christian festivals or feast days. Just as the pagan celebration of the winter solstice or Yule, a festival of hope and rebirth celebrating the return of the sun's light to earth, was enveloped into our celebration of Christmas and the birth of God's Son, Jesus, so too did the Celtic festival of Samhain become incorporated into the Christian calendar. As early as the 8th century CE, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, a time to honor the saints and martyrs of the Christian Church, followed on November 2nd by All Souls, a day set aside to remember our beloved who have died, particularly in the past year. The Celtic practice of wearing those costumes and masks to ward off any harmful roaming spirits survived as a Halloween custom to take place on the eve of All Saints' Day. Now, I admit, it is a bit of a stretch to equate our friend from the gospel reading, the tree-climbing tax collector Zacchaeus, with one of Samhain's All Hallows Eve harmful spirits, but I am going to attempt the leap. Because I am sure that all those on the receiving end of the tax collector's ring of the doorbell or knock on the door might have absolutely described Zacchaeus as a harmful spirit and would have been quite happy to have had the opportunity to escape his notice simply by wearing a mask or a colorful costume. Tax collectors in the time of Jesus were usually Jews who had gone to work for the Roman Empire. They collected taxes in the form of money or grain, fish, wine, what have you. Most everything collected went back to Rome, and what remained in Palestine went toward the elaborate building projects taking place in the region. The fact of Jews collecting money for Rome was in and of itself enough to cause many people to consider tax collectors traitors to their people. But there was more. The tax collector made his own money by whatever he managed to skim off the top. Tax collectors could increase the amount someone owed and then keep the extra they collected for themselves. A chief tax collector, such as Zacchaeus, would then be taking more money from all those others collecting taxes for him. So yes, he was rich indeed, and I think very much one of the more frightening spirits to come knocking at your door. And the crowd of people lining the streets waiting to see Jesus, certainly no one wanted to make room for Zacchaeus. If he wanted to see Jesus, short, unpopular Zacchaeus had no choice but to make the undignified scramble up that sycamore tree. But Jesus does what he does. He goes right up to Zacchaeus. He goes right up to this frightful spirit, and he calls him by name. Jesus calls him out of the tree and tells him that Jesus, is going to his house today. And the crowd that is gathered to see Jesus, a mixed crowd of the curious and the all-in Jesus fans, they begin to grumble. They call out Zacchaeus as a sinner, as not one of them, and as definitely not worthy of the honor of Jesus' attention. And again, as he does, Jesus confounds their expectations. And as Zacchaeus pledges to repay 4 times over anyone he has defrauded and to give half of all he owns to the poor, Jesus declares him a son of Abraham. He brings him fully back into the embrace of the promises of God. He is, as he has ever been, a part of the family of Israelites, a part of the family of God. Jesus calls Zacchaeus by name. He doesn't walk by. He looks straight up into that tree and calls him down. Because that is what Jesus does. Halloween or no Halloween, Jesus always goes looking for the harmful spirits, the frightful spirits, the outcast and broken spirits. He calls out to what is broken in us, what is frightful in us, and declares that yes, even though we may feel unworthy, loaded up as we are with our imperfections and all those parts of ourselves that do us harm or frighten us, Jesus has no fear. Jesus always sees beneath our facade, beneath our costumes and masks, even those we wear every single day. He sees right to the center and still declares us beloved of God. All parts of us, the beautiful, the messy, and the frightful. And that is some very good news on this All Hallows Eve.